So there's a trending video here about why it is that the wall is economically stupid. And, you know, I want to push back about this a little bit. What if I'm a liberal and I actually support massive infrastructure spending? I mean, I oppose the wall, but it's not because it's expensive. If it was just about economics, I'd support the investment. I'm in favor of a bridge to nowhere too while we're at it. I'm not joking. Wait. Why don't you build the wall and then build bridges over it? That would pump billions into the local economy. It would create loads of jobs. In fact, it would probably actually solve the problem. See, that's the irony, right? If you spent enough on infrastructure in the region to lift the economy up, no one would care about migrants anymore. There's a Dead Kennedy song here that explains why you should oppose the wall. And there's a PBS. It's a link to an excerpt from a Howard Zinn film about the value. Howard Zinn book about the value of civil disobedience in the history of the United States, as well as a link to Breitbart explaining that the way that drug cartels get drugs over is they use a cannon. You can always lift the cannon a little bit higher. You don't even have to build a bigger cannon. You just have to angle it slightly differently. The wall fiasco is actually a great example of what leftists mean when we say that American democracy is a choice between the extreme right and the insane right. You can be an insane social conservative and support the wall out of misplaced xenophobia, or you can be an extreme fiscal conservative and reject the wall out of austerity-driven economic reasoning. Both positions are morally bankrupt and intellectually specious. Somebody on the economic left would actually see the wall as stimulus spending, okay? Nobody's saying this, but it's the truth. They would not support the argument that the wall should not be built because it's expensive. That is fiscal conservatism and on the right of the economic spectrum, okay? Economic leftists support infrastructure spending, even if it's pointless. Somebody on the social left would see the wall as a human rights catastrophe because it eliminates economic mobility rights, tears families apart, breaks communities up, etc. Those are the actual left-wing arguments, and nobody's making them. They don't exist in the discourse. I mean, not nobody. If you look, you can. I mean, I'm making them. But like in the mainstream media, nobody's talking about the wall as infrastructure spending. Nobody's talking about the human rights catastrophe. It's a choice between supporting social conservatism and fiscal conservatism. And we call fiscal conservatism at the expense of social conservatism, we call that the left. Yeah. Whacked. I actually don't know if I'm smart or not. I tend to avoid designating my own intelligence level. I have always done very well on intelligence tests, like very well, top 1 to 2%. Well, the system has tended to isolate me, but it's a definitional problem ultimately, and I'd argue that it doesn't really matter. What I think is more relevant is that I'm interesting. Success is a weird concept to me. First of all, I've never cared much about it. I've been a floater my whole life, apathetic, disinterested in status. It's hard to measure whether you're successful when you've never really made much of an effort to succeed. You could say I'm dancing around words and just not coming to terms with failure. But you're really not, right? I never wanted kids, I never wanted wealth, I never wanted status. What I wanted was freedom. And I think you could make an argument that I've succeeded in not succeeding, which has given me that freedom. This is ternary logic, right? It's not a choice between success and failure. And people that try to present it to you that way are just douchebags, right? You cannot succeed without failing. And I mean, I'm not saying that you can't succeed without failing. I'm saying that you can not succeed without failing. I think that's the right way to look at it, okay? But here's an example of the way this kind of thinking works. I was once offered a job at StatsCan. This was a good government job with a living wage, but it would mean that I'd have to dedicate 40 plus hours to something I didn't really care about. In the end, I turned that job down, and I took a part-time job as a survey interviewer instead. Now, you can call me stupid if you'd like, I don't care. But the criteria that I found most compelling when forced to make the choice was not wealth or status, but free time. I picked the option that would maximize leisure, and I did so at the expense of success. But even the survey job proved too restrictive to me. I had to work on a schedule. I found this oppressive. So I took out a large loan and went back to school. I provided other reasons to family members, but the real reason for this was so that I could avoid having to exist within the confines of a schedule. I didn't go back to school to find a job. I went back to school because I didn't want a job. And ask around. That's pretty common. I eventually found myself on disability, and I've never felt more free. I have no schedules, no obligations, no responsibilities. If my goal was freedom, I've succeeded rather spectacularly, haven't I? See, it's obviously incredibly subversive to define success as attaining the freedom that comes with living on state assistance. But I feel this is a more valuable goal than anything society wants to put on my lap. Like I say, this is all definitional. I'll point to the IQ tests for what they are without putting much weight into it, and you can respond by arguing that the IQ tests don't add up with what you see in front of you if you insist. But I'd say that you should think that through a little more carefully. In the end, maybe intelligence is defined less by a tendency to work hard and get ahead, and more by the realization that this is a waste of time, and that the true happiness is found in an escape from earthly pursuits. But again, the important qualification here isn't whether I'm saying something intelligent. Don't look at me as a guru. It's whether I'm saying something interesting and thought-provoking. Okay? And I'm confident that I passed that test. Don't look at me as a source of wisdom. Okay? Look at me as a source of perplexment. I don't want you to say, that person's really smart. I want to listen to that person. I want you to say that person's interesting and makes me think for myself. So it's 7:30 at night. I've actually been up since about 10. I haven't done anything because I didn't expect to stay awake. I only got a couple hours worth of sleep. And I assumed I would eventually fall asleep at some point, but at this point I have been up for 9 hours. And I'm about to make something to eat, so I guess I'll have to conclude that I have been fagged up for the day. Like I say, I haven't done anything except just kind of, flounder around on the internet a little bit, listen to some tunes. You know, enjoyable Sunday afternoon. I need to get back to doing the ultra reality though. After I get something to eat. The compost run is not going to happen tomorrow because it's going to rain again. But it looks like we should get a nice Tuesday morning. And that's what I'm planning around. So, I gotta do the dishes, make some pasta, all those kinds of things, and then get to the ultra reality. On some level, that kind of gives me an extra day. It's not, let's hope that the extra day means that I'm just that much further forward. I'm still planning early October to get back to getting some listening, so that I can get over into the next season with something actually finished. Hey, do you know who's supposed to figure out when politicians are lying? Who has the burden here? Who has the responsibility? Who has the weight of the world on their shoulders in determining whether politicians are lying or not? The media? The candidates? In a democracy, that responsibility actually falls upon the voters.